earth. Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
Good morning. What a gorgeous day, huh? Yes. Thank you, yes. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. We're going to talk today, we're going to talk this month, kind of following up with the last of our Emma Curtis Hopkins from a Scientific Christian Mental Practice. And if you'd like to work with this book, very powerful book, it's available in the bookstore. There's 3 left there, plus this one, which I will sell you this one for a special price. Same price as those over there. No. Emma has a way of presenting truth teachings in kind of a very direct, do this kind of fashion. There's a lot of what I call theorists out there. Emerson is great on theory. If you want to understand kind of in your mind, how does the universe work and like that, he's fabulous for reading that. You know, but Emma is the kind of just do it. One of my teachers used to call her the Nike lady. She was the just do it gal. Just do this practice on Monday, do this practice on Tuesday, do this practice on Wednesday. And for a lot of us, we need that, don't we? We need to sit there, because if we just hear this wonderful theory and don't put it into practice, it just stays as theory. So Emma is all about putting this into practice, which is where, as they say, the rubber meets the road. So today we're going to be looking at the topic in her chapter called Piercing the Veil. And I think it's perfect this week that we're looking at this particular chapter. I wanted to start off with a little quote from a poet named Leonard Jacobson, who said, if you are to know God, you will have to give up your belief in God. If you are to know God, you will have to give up your belief in God. Any belief we have in God, any belief we have about the infinite, is too small. It's too small. Even when we call it the infinite, in our own minds, in our own consciousness, can you really truly perceive infinite? No? No. So any belief we have is too small. So any belief we have to give up so that something bigger can come. We can get a larger idea. Emma says this lesson is be not deceived. Be not deceived. And who deceives? What deceives? The outer appearances and our interpretation of them. That which appears to be out there, that which appears to be real, is what catches us up in, last month we were studying Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements. It catches us up in what he calls the mitote, the dream. What the Hindus call the maya, the illusion. But that there is a reality behind that, deeper than that. That if we can pierce the veil and begin to see that, our life shifts, and we shift not just as a nice theory, but in how we operate in the world. Okay? Spirit does not deceive. So we have ideas. In the Bible, the story of Job, Job has one idea of God. If you remember that story, he has an idea of God. God tests God. Satan and God have a conversation. This is how you know it's kind of a story. This is not a historical event, okay? So Satan and God are sitting around having a drink together, having a beer together, and Satan says, yeah, look, consider your servant Job over here. And so, they decide a series of tests to see if he really does believe in God. And so, they put out that series of tests and test him, and he continues all the way through it to have a certain idea of God, that God is good. All the stuff disappears. All of his wonderful wealth and holdings, his health, all of it disappears, and yet still he holds on to God is good. He's piercing the veil. He's looking at something else. His friends are sitting around with a whole different idea of God. He's punishing you. He's taking stuff away. He doesn't like you anymore, etc. You've sinned. You've done something. And eventually, each person gets their idea of God playing out for them. Because eventually, at the end of the story, everything is restored to Job. And his friends have a little problem. Okay? The kind of God, the kind of what we see, both Both of them experience their idea of God. Both of them experience their belief in what they believe is real. What do you believe is real? What do you believe is real? Because God is all there is. It's greater than any idea we have of it. And we have to remember that we are spirit and form. Emma says, if all is spirit, then I am spirit. If spirit cannot be in poverty, I cannot be in poverty. If spirit cannot be burdened, I cannot be burdened. If spirit cannot be sick, I cannot be sick. All these things are nothing to spirit. Therefore, they are nothing to me. I am not deceived by any of them. That's a pretty powerful place to be. One of my teachers used to say, if it ain't true of God, it ain't true of you. If it isn't true of God, it's not true of me. So what's the truth of God? God is this pure, infinite love, this pure, infinite good. Never sick, never in poverty, never burdened. That's what God is. And that's truly what you and I and all of creation are. That's the truth of what we are. Now, have you noticed that there's some people who forget that? I mean, not in here. We all remember this all the time, right? I've never forgotten that myself, you know. But there are some people who forget that. There's some people who don't know that. There's some people who operate in ways that are completely opposite that. That doesn't mean that God isn't all there is. Just because I don't know how to use electricity doesn't mean that electricity is all there is, or that electricity works in the way we want it to work. So these are strong words. You may notice a part of your mind wanting to argue with them. It might say, well, what about such and such? Okay? There's always a such and such, isn't there? Yeah. This past week we had a big such and such. But there's always a such and such. And when there isn't, then we go back farther. Well, what about Hitler? What about this? What about that? What about, all that stuff, okay? There's always a such and such to catch our attention. To say, no, look, I'm real. I'm real. It's really true. There is evil in the world. Ooh. Our mind says, you don't understand. I really am sick, poor, burdened, lonely, uncreative, whatever it is. Okay? Our mind says that and chatters away. But it's not the truth. And at the level of appearance, by the way, they are real. At the level of appearance, at the level of our playing with them, they are real. But they are effects. Appearances are effects, as in the cause and effect law. Appearances are effect, and what we want to deal with, if we want to change the effect, if we want to change appearance, is we need to go back and deal with cause. First cause, which is the spirit of the source within. Yesterday I was here at a men's retreat, and during one of our breaks I went out back and walked the labyrinth, and I didn't have a particular agenda of anything that I was carrying into the labyrinth. I just was walking the labyrinth just as a centering process. And I had this aha moment where I realized, think about the labyrinth. The one back here we have is 9 slabs of concrete formed into a circle with some lines painted on it, right? That's what our labyrinth is. I've walked labyrinths that are, dug out in the sand on a beach with a stick. I've done some that are made with yarn. I've done some that have been there for years and are stones and have plants around them. But a labyrinth is just simply a path we follow, and yet I can tell you, because I have done it, that you can walk across that labyrinth through all the lines and you don't get struck dead with lightning. There's nothing that says you have to stay between the lines. The lines and the labyrinth itself are an appearance. Okay? They're an effect. We agree that if I walk through these lines, if I follow this path around, I'm going to have a certain experience, or I'm going to have a certain journey. But we agree to that, right? There's no solid, we're forced to be between the lines. There's no concrete walls there, right? Am I making sense? Am I? Yeah. Okay? So we get to play in that. We're free of the lines. We are free of the path. We don't have to stay in the path. And yet, at the same time, if we stay in the lines, if we do and walk the labyrinth and do that process, we're very likely to have a very sacred experience, right? Okay? So appearances are not the truth, and yet they are labyrinths, they are pathways to a sacred experience if we will walk them with consciousness. Now the difference is that we can get caught up in all this stuff about appearances out here. This week we can get caught up in the tragedy of it, we can get caught up in gun control or no gun control, we can get caught up in all sorts of ups and downs and all sorts of stuff about that the media would like to spin us up around, right? Okay? And we get polarized, we can get all upset. Or we can look at this and say, how is this a labyrinth? How is this a path to the sacred, to a deeper perspective, to a deeper perception of the sacred than I've ever experienced before? How can I walk into this more deeply than ever before? And so we, at one point in time, simultaneously, and this is the dance of metaphysics, if you will, the dance of being a spiritual person on earth. See, it's easy if we're spiritual people in spirit, right? We don't have all this duality to deal with. Some of you remember that, right? Sometimes you sit there and go, God, I just wish I was not even, wish I didn't have to do this earthly experience. Can we just, kind of, I'd just rather be a spirit free. Of course, a whole lot of spirits are lining up to be on this earth at this time, it seems to be. But anyway, but we signed up. We signed up to play in this stuff, right? And to sign up in this, to play in this appearance of, in this dance of duality. So we're here. And yet simultaneously, we know that we're more than that. So are we here to walk through the duality and the appearances of good and evil, sin and innocence, this and that? Can we walk through the duality of that and still remember who we truly are and who they truly are and who all of this truly is all at the same time? Take a breath with me. Because that is the dance. And it is a challenging dance at times, isn't it? Somebody close to us dies and we don't want to have die. And it's a challenging dance. And you know what? It's okay to be human and feel that. It's okay to grieve that. It's okay to say, I didn't want that person to go. I'm going to miss the physicality of that person. Their smile, their hug, their voice, all that stuff. And at the same time, I know the spiritual truth of them. They're whole, perfect, and complete, and they're not dead. They're still alive, just not in physical form. So we dance with the effects. I want to read a poem from Leonard Jacobson to give you an idea of this idea of the dance. This poem is called The Gates of Hell. Can I say that word here? I was told early on that I was licensed as a minister to use 2 swear words. I can say damn and I can say hell. We don't believe in either one of those here, but A man was searching for that which cannot be found. Isn't that a great statement just by itself? A man was searching for that which cannot be found. How many of us have searched for that which cannot be found? Yeah. A man was searching for that which cannot be found when suddenly he arrived at the gates of hell. He was about to enter when he was stopped by an old magician. You have no weapons, said the magician. Take this sword. It will protect you from the evil forces that lie within. I do not believe in evil forces, said the man, so I have no need of weapons. Only a warrior can enter the gates of hell, said the magician, slowly drawing the sword from its scabbard. And as he did so, a terrible demon appeared before him. Behold the power of the sword, said the magician, and with one swift blow he killed the demon. Now will you take the sword, he asked. The man shook his head. Are you blind, said the magician? Can you not see that with this sword the demon was slain? Are you blind, replied the man. Can you not see that with this sword the demon was created? And he walked past the magician, through the gates of hell, as if they existed only as an illusion in the minds of men. I loved some of the old Star Trek movies where they would encounter something that if they added power to it, if they fired their phasers into it, it just grew in power as they were trying to get away from it. Remember any of those episodes? Those of you who are Trekkie fans like me? Okay. oftentimes our firing into it will simply make it more so. In this case, the drawing of the sword creates the demon itself. We have processes in our mind that if we start to say there is evil in the world, we're going to get enough reinforcement to say, yep, there is evil in the world. Emma puts it this way: as imaginations arise, let them alone. The simple knowledge that they are imaginations is sufficient to make them null and void. Imaginations deal with evil, matter, death, sickness, poverty, old age, pain, failure, and the other burdens and bondages of the race. Truth, that's a capital T, truth does not deal with them, it leaves them alone. When we refuse to take our eye off of the truth and deal with truth, we encounter more and more of that experience of truth, that experience of wholeness, that experience of love, that experience of the oneness that we are, that all of creation is. But sometimes it's taxing. It's a challenge to let go of the imaginations, isn't it? Okay? We all have our special ones, right? And they know us. It's almost like they know us because we created them. They know us to try and catch our attention. So we stand in truth. And what she says is we know. All we have to do is know truth as truth. It's just stand there and know truth. Emmett Fox said that any problem can be solved by focusing on God. And the reason for that is God is all good. And therefore, whatever problem I'm experiencing, if I focus on God, it's the truth of the problem. And therefore leads me to the solution of the problem. It's again the labyrinth. It's walking into the labyrinth until it unravels its truth and its secrets and unveils what's really actually happening there. So truth is the nature of God, and nothing is greater than God. Nothing is greater than God. We do the dance, we forget it sometimes, but the truth is that nothing is greater than God. And so all the appearances eventually fall away before a strong stand of knowing God as truth. We've all had the experience of going into something that we absolutely knew was the worst experience of our lives and finding out 5 years later that it was the best experience of our lives, or one of the best. Or at least we're grateful for what we came out of, the prize we came out of it with. We did an exercise yesterday in the men's retreat. This altar, by the way, is from the men's retreat. Yesterday we wanted to bring in the energy from that retreat into the service today. So you're being blessed by all that transpired this weekend in here. And so we did a process of looking at challenges in our lives and what was the gratitude for them. What was the gift that those challenges gave us that we could walk away with? Okay? You don't have to make truth work. Okay? You know it, and it follows its own working principles. See, truth just works. It just is. We don't have to make it work. You don't have to make electricity work. You know, you flip on a light switch so it directs it in where you want it to go, but you don't have to make the electricity work. How do you make electricity work? Anybody? Yeah, you can't. Okay? You can't. But we've been so trained to deal with, to live from our intellects, and our intellect deals with problem solving. It deals with facts, not truth, with facts, and it deals with appearances. And so like the sword, our problem solving creates... Thank you. When we're looking for problems to solve, what are we seeing? There's problems, more and more and more problems. You know, it's the old saying, you know, if all you have is a hammer, the whole world looks like a nail. And so when we're trying to solve problems, and the whole world appears as a problem to be solved, then we have wonderful battles to win and lose. Okay? We have our imaginations of evils. We have all this stuff. And it's exciting, isn't it? I mean, we go to movies to watch Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible or something else, you know, somebody else, you know, overcome the bad guys, right? It's exciting. It's fun. Until it gets to be our own life. And then it's not so fun anymore. How we break from that is we start to see the truth. We start to see the world as whole, perfect, and complete. We don't let our imaginations, our intellect, our consciousness get fooled by what's happening out there. The way we do that is the practice of love. We look at everything, we look at anything, we look at all of it and bring love. Because love is the deepest truth of the universe. It's been said that God is love by every mystic who's ever experienced God. How can I bring love into this? When I'm walking into a situation bringing love, I'm walking into the labyrinth with the consciousness that I need to experience the labyrinth. How can I do this? I can bring love. And I can remember the truth that God is all there is, and God is greater than this. God is greater than this. I think it was the movie, I can't remember the name of it, Deviant, where there's the character is kind of has these special powers, and one of the ways that they're tested is they're put into sort of a mind state, a dream state, if you will, and they have to solve the problem. And she solves the problem by suddenly realizing that she's not in the problem. She solves the problem by realizing that she's not actually in the problem, that it's just happening in her mind. And she starts to wake up, and the thing dissolves. Okay? When we can do that, when we can start to realize that the problem we think we have really isn't a problem. It looks like a problem. It can get really real, right? You've noticed? I've noticed. Mine get really big and talk a lot and rattle my world, okay? But if I keep going, wait, God is all there is. There's only one life. God is all there is. God is greater than this. Something eventually starts to shift. I've had physical healings. I've had financial healings. I've had relationship healings. I've had all sorts of healings by just simply doing that process. And you bring love to it. So you contemplate the ideas or the aspects of God that you choose to experience. So if you're looking at an appearance in your life that you don't like, you contemplate, what would I choose to be experiencing instead? And you fill your mind and your heart and your whole being with that. And of course, the appearance won't go away really quietly. Have you noticed? But if you keep on your focus, if you finally say, look, I'm serious about this. I've had enough of financial difficulties. I've had enough of failed relationships. I've had enough of this chronic sickness. I've had enough of whatever it is in my life, failed careers, frustration, whatever it is. I'm choosing to know the truth of who I am, the truth of what this world is, and the truth. And I am not going to stop until that truth manifests in my life. Eventually that thing sits there and goes, okay, I give up. You got it. Ernest tells us that the divine plan is freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. That's on the very first page of the Science of Mind textbook. So the first foundational idea is freedom is the divine plan. The plan for all of you is freedom. Look at the person sitting next to you or somebody near you and say, God's plan for you is freedom. God's plan for you is freedom. Emma gives us an affirmation to practice, and if you like this affirmation, if it resonates with you, we have them on little slips of paper that Paul will have available when you leave. This is the affirmation. I have not been deceived into seeing evil in anyone or anything. I see good in all things and all people, always without delusion. I never accuse anyone or anything of seeming imperfection in any way. I never accuse myself of seeming imperfection or of hiding imperfections. All is the light of truth. It's a pretty powerful affirmation, isn't it? It's a pretty challenging affirmation to keep. I accuse no one, including myself, of imperfection. Now your mind, if your mind is like mine, just went through a whole list of all the imperfect people you know in your life and then all the imperfections you have, right? Okay? We're trained that way, aren't we? We're trained to look for our imperfections. Bam, 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 bam. What if we stopped doing that? What if we stopped doing that? And said, you are whole, perfect, and complete. I may not like certain things that you do. It's not saying you have to like everything that everybody does. But everything is whole, perfect, and complete. See, where would James Bond be without the villains? We would have never heard of him. Okay? Where would Ulysses have been without all his journey? We would have never had a story. In the Ramayana, I believe it is, the main character eventually slaughters or kills the villain, and the villain's charioteer rides up to him and hands him an envelope from his longtime, tremendously bad guy villain, and he says, "If you're reading this, I must be dead. I want you to know that I've been your deepest friend and admirer, and everything I've done has been to strengthen you and to bring you to the full realization of who you are." What if we looked at the world and said, what is this? Is this here to bring me to the fullest realization of who I am? What if this world, what if all the stuff in it, all the people, all the imperfections are to help me to see the beauty and the perfection of who I am and who all this is? What if it's all your friend? Take a breath. This is standing in the mortal and allowing our spirit to speak through us. This is standing in our two-dimensional, three-dimensional reality, our duality, and yet remembering our spiritual truth of who we are. So this week, I'm going to invite you to do 3 things. Number 1, notice where you have believed in bondage. Notice where you have believed in bondage. Maybe it's in your health, maybe it's in your finances, maybe it's in your love life, maybe it's in your career, your creativity, wherever it is, notice where you believed in bondage. And then take one of those areas and describe what freedom would look like in that area for you. Take one of those areas and describe it, and then create a clear experiential picture of what would freedom look like, sound like, smell like, feel like, taste like, be like for you in that area. Okay, that's number 2. And then number 3 is create a declaration of truth about this area. A declaration of truth is where you, it's like that affirmation that I just wrote. So there is no power in my finances. My finances are the finances of God, and God is the extreme wealth, the full wealth of the universe. However it is that you want to speak it for yourself, the infinite source of the universe completely funds me and has my back at all times. I think Catherine Ponder uses the wonderful, I am a rich child of a rich father, mother, God. How would that be? How would that be if you were a loved child of a loving father, mother, God? All that, whatever it is. So you speak that truth and you think it daily. You have that in your consciousness so that when the appearance comes knocking, that's what's foremost in your consciousness. That's what comes right back at it. And instead of the appearance bowling you over again and again and again, you've got something to bolster yourself up and say, wait a minute, you're not the truth of me. Put that sword away, it doesn't belong here. Refuse to be deceived by or focus on the appearances because you are dealing with cause. You are dealing with first cause. So that's your assignment. Notice where you believed in it. Take one of those areas and create what it is that you would like to experience instead, the truth of freedom in that area, and then create a declaration, something that you can remember, write the most powerful statement you can think of about the truth of that, and continue to keep that in front of your consciousness. Are you willing to do that this week? Okay. If you do that, and if you keep on doing that, you'll experience some powerful, powerful, powerful shifts in your life. I guarantee it, as the guy says on TV. I guarantee it. I don't know how good his guarantees are, but that one I know because truth works. I want to close with a quote from Ernest. A new light is coming into the world. We are on the borderland of a new experience. The veil between spirit and matter is very thin. The invisible passes into visibility through our faith in it. A new science, a new religion, and a new philosophy are rapidly being developed. This is in line with the evolution of the great presence, and nothing can hinder its progress. The truth will out. The spirit will make itself known. So let's take a moment to move into prayer, to deepen that, to experience that, to anchor that experience in. So I remember that infinite spirit, that infinite oneness, by whatever name we've given it so many names in all of our cultures, and yet there is that which is beyond the appearance, beyond the stuff. The infinite one source, whatever name we give it, there is that one presence. That is all there is. It is pure love. It is whole, perfect, and complete. It is pure good. It is abundant and opulent life. And because that infinite presence is all there is nothing outside of it. Therefore, I myself, and each of us is one of this presence. I am one of it. Each of us is one of this presence. We are already one of it. There is no separation. There is nothing outside of that. And so therefore we are embodiments, individualizations of this love, of this good, of this abundant life, of this wholeness right here and right now. This is the truth of who we are. And so I speak my word that we awaken to this truth, that we pierce the veil of illusion that has made us believe that we are something less than that, because that is not the truth of us. We are the full power, the full beauty, the full wholeness of the divine. That is the truth of who we are. And as we deal with life from that awareness, life begins to move into alignment with that truth. The appearances shift and change because we have changed at the level of cause, of first cause within us. We have shifted and changed our own consciousness. And so I know that each of us does this here and now. Each of us says yes to this to the degree that is possible in our lives here and now. You may not have to do the whole thing right now, but just a little shift will create a huge result. And so each of us says yes to as much of this truth as we can embody here and now. Yes to being conscious of it. Yes to waking up from the illusion. Yes to no longer being part of the deception of appearance. And for this I'm grateful, for each person who's saying yes, for each of us who wakes up, because as each of us wakes up, we all collectively awaken more fully. And so for each of us who is awakening to this, for each of us who is saying yes to this, each of us who just even does just the most minute shift in consciousness in this direction, I am ever so grateful. Because the benefits from that and the blessings from that flow throughout this world. And so I release this word into a law that moves it into form, moves it into experience right here, right now. And so it does. And join me in saying, and so it is. Thank you.
To